Hello, hope you're doing well. Before we jump into this, I want to let you know that for the third time in a row, today's video has been sponsored by Wix. Let me tell you about that. Wix is an online website building platform that gives you the power to create your very own website for whatever purposes you might be looking to fulfill. It's a piece of cake to include all of the features you need and keep things organized using the drag and drop editing system, which comes with a bunch of presets for things like links, layouts, and even moving video backgrounds if that's the kind of thing that takes your fancy. Alternatively, you can upload your own assets to really give your site a personal touch. In my case, I've been using Wix ever since I first built my portfolio website with it a few years ago, and I've been recommending it to people ever since as a user-friendly way to go about constructing a website. If you guys have been looking for a means to create a portfolio site for yourself or anything else, I'd suggest giving Wix a try. If you want to check it out, there are going to be links for you to follow both on screen and in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Now on to today's video. Alright, welcome back, I guess. Welcome certainly to another sketchbook session. These are kind of a series of unaligned videos. They're certainly not quite as polished as the kind of art videos I usually upload. They're just kind of a nice opportunity to sit back, draw something entirely random and non-specific, and just chill for a bit. And I will be the first to say that definitely feels like something I need right now. I have been super busy for what feels like a very long time, and I thought for this week's video, you know what, I am going to treat myself and make something that just does not take a lot of brain power. So here we are. So yeah, get yourself a cup of tea or equivalent comforting beverage, and hopefully you can join me in this moment and take the duration of this video as an opportunity to just switch off and unwind for a little bit. I feel like that's an important thing to remember to do, but a very easy thing to forget, you know? Just to bear in mind that you don't have to be running at 100% capacity and working every second of every day. At the very least, I feel like that's something that's definitely very easy to forget as a freelance artist, because working too much is absolutely something I am guilty of. I have a tendency to take on too much work at once and then try to give 100% to every single bit of it, and that's mathematically impossible. And also part of the reason why I've been so busy lately. So it's especially nice to be able to take a step back and make something simple like this every now and then. Anyway, that's my public service announcement for the day. Remember to take breaks, and remember to not feel guilty about taking breaks. You're only human. Man, I always feel like I end up giving life advice in these sketchbook session videos. To be fair, it's probably very obvious life advice, but it's stuff that I need to remind myself of, so hopefully it can be at least a little bit helpful to some of you all in the process. Anyway, I've been talking this whole time and haven't even mentioned the drawings going on screen. Terribly sorry for that. Where are my manners? So I'm aware that I've been doing a lot of videos lately where I redraw stuff, and what can I say? I'm in a mood. It's fun, it's refreshing, and I am showing no signs of stopping, so I hope you're enjoying them at least. Although these particular sketches that you can see on screen right now aren't technically redesigns or anything, I just haven't drawn these characters in a really long time, and I kinda miss them. For context, these are a few of the characters I made up for my final university project a couple years back. I basically made up an entire video game concept where all of the characters came in pairs, you could switch up who was paired with who for different effects, and I always imagined that when a pair did a combo move, they would do a little dance together. So more often than not, whenever I draw characters from that particular concept, I draw them dancing, which is going to explain the poses you'll see in these sketches here. I remember I had a lot of fun making up the characters for that project because it was an opportunity to mash up a bunch of different genres into one setting, which is one of my favourite things to do. Actually, that's also something that I would just recommend doing in general, mashing stuff up. Because I get so many people asking me like, oh, how do I design a character? Or how do I design a cool outfit for my character? And there's no one catch-all answer to those questions because they're really broad questions. But one thing that's always really fun, I find, and something that can lend a lot of uniqueness to a design as well, is when you just take bits and pieces from various things that you like and Frankenstein them together. I say that a lot, Frankenstein things together. I don't know if it's something that I've picked up from common slang or just something that I've coined in my own brain, but I hope it makes sense either way. Just in case it doesn't make sense though, what I mean is that, with regards to character design anyway, every good character is made up of parts, which isn't to say that they're actually parts chopped off of existing characters and pasted together, like Hello Kitty's head on Solid Snake's body, horrifying thought, but more so parts of a certain kind of fashion, or bits and pieces of different personality types. A weapon from one genre and an outfit from another, all weaved together into one cohesive character. I think I've said as much before in previous videos, but variety is the spice of life and truly the spice of character design. Think of a sci-fi cowboy, for instance. Characters are a lot more interesting when they go against the grain a little bit and have something unexpected about them, when they defy or surpass their genre to some extent by combining with elements from another. The main takeaway here is that it's fine and good to take inspiration from the things you enjoy. Inspiration is one of the most helpful tools you can have for any type of design or creative endeavor. With the characters I'm sketching here, for instance, the first pair were inspired by DDR machines and retro gaming, the second pair were inspired by sci-fi and FPS games, and the third pair were inspired by the American jukebox era and baseball. I know nothing of the sport, but I like the aesthetic. There were also characters from this project who were inspired by carnivals and casinos and aliens and steampunk, just a whole bunch of different aesthetics that I thought were interesting or cool. Even if you do create a bunch of characters who are fairly stereotypical of their own genres, when you place them next to a character who you would not normally see in the same setting, it can make them both much more intriguing. It takes all kinds, is what I'm saying. Hell, I mean, that project in particular was pretty sci-fi heavy, but even though I work more on fantasy genre stuff nowadays, I still find it way easier to design interesting characters when I don't limit myself to just the typical fantasy aesthetic. Put a bit of science in your wizards, make a rogue that's covered in glitter. You know, have fun. That's the other main bit of character design advice I can give, actually. Have fun with it. That's the great thing about character creation. Everything's made up and the rules don't matter, because there are no rules. And if there are rules, you make them. Just make sure not to set any rules for yourself that are going to hold back your own creativity. For example, let's look back at these sketches I'm doing here. I could have set the rule that everybody in this setting needed to be human, but instead I was like, I'm going to give this guy a magnetic body and a TV for a head, and this guy's going to be a grumpy plant man based on bones from Star Trek. On their own, those concepts do sound slightly insane, but as long as you're enjoying yourself, you're going to make something fun, and that's the most important thing. It's okay for any worry about whether things make strict logical sense to come kind of secondary to that. Trust me, suspension of disbelief will go a long way. Anyway, character design crash course aside, I think out of all of these sketches, my favourite was the last one, because I think the pose turned out the best. Although that's another nice thing about these sketchbook sessions. Not everything has to be perfect. That's kind of another area I tend to get quite caught up in when I make my usual speed paints. I try to make sure that whatever I'm drawing is a fully coloured and rendered piece to whatever degree I think it needs to be, which is usually quite a high degree. But there's definitely something to be said for just doing a little sketch once in a while, and throwing your concern for accurate proportions out of the window in favour of just having a good time. Which I definitely did here, because some of these guys' proportions ended up looking really weird. I did have some reference pictures pulled up for these while I was sketching, of course, because it's always worth having a reference for tricky poses like this. Especially when you're drawing people doing complicated dance moves and you do not know how to dance yourself. Actually, that's a thing some people get quite hung up on sometimes, isn't it? Not being unable to dance, but using reference pictures. I've heard so many people say that they feel like they're cheating if they use a reference to draw something correctly. Although I remember I used to be almost the exact opposite when I was younger because I was just so stubborn. I would refuse to use references when I drew, not because I thought it was cheating, but because I thought I just didn't need them, no matter what my teachers said. Here's a little bit of insider information about my teenage self. I was incorrect about many things, and this was one of them. So how about we erase some of those reference picture hang-ups right now? No matter what stage you're at in your art career, you can and should use references when you draw, because it's helpful. And you shouldn't feel bad about it, because much like a pencil or a ruler, a reference picture is just a tool. A tool that helps you to check yourself and keep things from looking wonky. Though it's also worth bearing in mind that just using a reference picture does not guarantee that your drawings are always going to be perfectly proportioned. Case in point. But hey, it's nothing worth stressing over if something does end up looking a bit wonky. Because like I said earlier, you can't expect to be working at 100% capacity 100% of the time. And that's okay, as long as you're having fun. Anyway, that's probably enough of me rambling for one day. I hope there was at least something enlightening in there somewhere, but I would not be surprised if there wasn't, so I'll just settle for entertaining instead. Hopefully it was at least a little bit of that. In any case, thank you very much for joining me for this little sit-down. If you want to see more of these characters, or maybe see some of the other characters from this project that I mentioned, let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can feature them in another sketchbook session sometime in the future. But in the meantime, thank you very much again for stopping by. Here's hoping that the rest of your day treats you well, and I hope to see you next time. Take it easy.